Okay, the Senate Committee on Higher Education, Subcommittee on Higher Education will come to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Creighton.
Here.
Senator Middleton.
Here.
Senator King. Senator Springer.
Here.
Senator West.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Okay, members, thank you. I know we have several of us coming in and out from different committees and different roll calls. Today we have 3 bills on the agenda. We'll take the opportunity to hear public testimony after each bill is laid out and explained by its author. Public testimony will be limited to 2 minutes, and if you could use the kiosk system outside the hearing room to register for testimony. It's important to note that if you wish for your position or written testimony to be on record, you must be here in person to register and submit it. And anyone interested in submitting written testimony, please submit 7 copies up front here to our clerks, and they will help you with that if you need assistance. If you need any other help or any assistance registering, please let us know. With that, members will go ahead and get started. Well, I was going to ask Bill too, because I didn't know we were coming in. Yeah, no, yeah, you want to see it, take it. Yeah. Go ahead. Okay, thank you. Chair lays out Senate Bill 1563. You'll help me lay that out. Thank you.
Chair now recognizes Senator Creighton to lay out Senate Bill 1563.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sam Houston State University, founded in 1879, enrolls over 22,000 students with an operating budget of exceeding $370 million. Includes its main campus in Huntsville, Texas, a regional education center in the Woodlands, Texas, and a College of Osteopathic Medicine in Conroe, Texas. Sam Houston State University is already one of the most competitive DO schools in the United States, with a matriculant metrics, MCAT scores, and GPA higher than the national average. Currently, the average in-state tuition and fees at a public medical school in Texas costs about $23,800. In-state tuition and fees at Sam Houston State University College of Medicine is $59,100. The College of Osteopathic Medicine will be a key in educating primary care physicians in Texas. Reducing the cost of tuition will further the success of increasing primary care physicians in rural Texas, certainly a goal that we all share together in alignment. This proposal would make Sam Houston State University College of Medicine eligible for funding granted through the Health-Related Institution Formula, and this would appropriate approximately $30,182,000 for I&O during the 24-25 biennium. Sam Houston State University College of Medicine was established in response to a shortage of primary care physicians in Texas, and this investment would help the College of Medicine programs be more accessible to students and expand healthcare availability to small rural Texas communities. This would also eliminate disparities that exist between Sam Houston State's College of Medicine tuition costs and the tuition cost of all other Texas public medical schools and private schools. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that we have some witnesses available.
Are there any questions of the author? Hearing none, public testimony is open. This time I'll call the Dean of Sam Houston State University, Thomas Moore, and Alicia White, President of Sam Houston State University. Madam President.
Good morning.
Would you please state your name and who you represent? And the bill is in real good shape.
I feel better already. Thank you, sir. I'm Elisa White, and I'm privileged to serve as president of Sam Houston State University. So thank you so much for your time today. People in Texas reside in a lot of types of cities. I've got a dad in Parker County, a daughter in Tarrant County, a son in Lamar County. I've got kids everywhere, and they have different access to health care. And we believe that wherever you live in Texas, you need to have the same quality health care opportunities as any other person in the state. Texas has many rural areas challenged to provide health care to the residents. Osteopathic physicians are twice as likely as others to enter primary care and to select rural and urban underserved areas as practice locations. The Sam Houston State University College of Osteopathic Medicine continues to fill a crucial void by enabling student doctors to gain a medical education close to home. The aim is to serve the health needs of their regions. The medical school took several years to plan and develop. The Texas State University System Board of Regents gave us approval in August 2017. Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board gave approval a year later. The Commission on Osteopathic College Accreditation granted us candidate status in February 2019, and we began recruiting later that fall. COCA gave us approval in May of 2020 to begin instruction, and the first class of students enrolled at the medical school in August 2020, about a week after I started as president. We're now finishing out our third year of academic operations, and our students are thriving. However, to help ensure the state's rural communities have access to critical healthcare services, we need our student doctors to be treated similarly to other state medical school students and receive state support. Senate Bill 1563 allows for the state statute to be revised so that the medical school can receive the funding allocated in Senate Bill 1, and our students can be treated equitably. So thank you, Chairman Creighton, Chairman West, for filing your opportunities today to speak to you, and then Senator Creighton for filing Senate Bill 1563. Thank you for your support of our medical school.
Any questions of Madam President? Thank you. Dean Moore?
Thank you, Senator, and thank you to all our senators.
Please state your name.
My name is Tom Moore. I'm the dean of the Sam Houston State University College of Osteopathic Medicine, and it is an absolute pleasure to be here and an honor to serve in this role. Just to give you a very brief update of where we are now with our institution, we have 330 students that are enrolled in 3 classes. Our inaugural class will graduate in May of 2024 when they'll go through the match and inter-residency programs at that time. We have about 100 faculty and staff who are highly trained and really focused on both patient care as well as training our student doctors to be compassionate physicians. Our focus is on rural and community-based care. We don't have an academic medical center. We place our students after their second year into rural and community-based settings all the way up and down the third and all up and down the east of Texas. We actually embed them in those communities so that they're able to be a part of these rural and community-based settings. And that is how we know that they're going to be more likely to go into training in these sites. 96% of our student body are Texans, and we preferentially select applicants who are interested in staying in Texas and preferentially select those that are interested in staying in rural and community-based primary care settings. And we believe that we're going to be successful with this. Our student doctors are doing extremely well, and as Senator Creighton mentioned, they're well above the national average. In fact, our inaugural class had a 97.1% first-time pass rate on the national boards. That puts us in the top 25% of osteopathic medical schools in the country, and is almost unheard of for a new medical school to be doing that well. So we really do believe that our students are going to do very, very well. Now, in order to keep folks to practice medicine in the state, we need to be promulgating new residency programs and graduate medical education. We're excited to say that our first new residency program is going to launch this year as a rural family medicine residency in Huntsville. And even more exciting, we've received a $5.7 million federal grant from HRSA to be able to fund that program. And so one more way that we're going to be able to keep our graduates in this area. We're also working on several new residency programs in the process. Ultimately, our goal, our mission, is to serve East Texas and beyond with rural and community-based primary care. And we believe that the way that we're teaching our students, where we're teaching our students, and how we're teaching our students are going to really foster that process of making a difference in the workforce in the future. And so we're hoping that we can have parity between our students and the student doctors at other medical schools. We have a growing shortage of primary care physicians, especially especially in rural areas, and that's just going to get worse as our physician workforce retires and as the population of our state continues to expand. So we're excited. I could sit here and brag on my student doctors, my faculty and staff all day, but our biggest concern here is making sure that that they have the resources that they need so that they can enter those primary care fields as we're planning for them. So with that, I'll conclude my remarks, and we're happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? Senator Creighton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dean, congratulations for all the accomplishments and the things that you've shared with us here in the hearing, and then it's just remarkable. I mean, the medical school was built without state funding, and then was it the first 2 classes admitted or 3?
We have 3 classes now.
3 classes admitted, under the original framework, and many by scholarship, right? Yeah. Or how was that accomplished on the front end?
Many of them are on private loans, and that is difficult. And one of our big concerns is, as we want them to go into primary care and rural medicine, that debt load is a concern. So
Yes.
being on par with the other state medical students would be really helpful. And we're at a point now for our 4th class coming in. We had 3,700 applications for that class that will start this summer.
That's
so the word is out that this is a quality place to be, and our mission resonates.
It's so exciting, President White. Thanks for your leadership and all of our meetings and conversations and your advocacy. But it's just, I would encourage the members, if you have a chance to tour
Please.
the medical school in Conroe for Sam Houston State, make sure you do. It's just, I've been all over the state, obviously, in our higher education institutions, and just enjoying all the tours and being on all the different campuses. But it's one of the best that I've been able to visit, and it's right there at home for me. So just appreciate both of you and the entire team. And I know you've got a pretty good crew with you today. So thank you. Appreciate you. We're excited about it.
Is there anyone else that'd like to testify for or against Senate Bill 1563? Public testimony is closed. So what are we gonna do? At this time, Senator Creighton moves that Senate Bill 1563 be reported to the full committee with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. Clerk will call the roll.
Senator Creighton,
Aye.
Senator Middleton,
Aye.
Senator King, Senator Springer,
Aye.
Senator West.
Aye.
4 ayes.
There being 4 ayes and no nays, Senate Bill 1563 will be reported to the full committee with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was a UNT Sam Houston basketball joke, but I figured I didn't really want it on the record. We're just excited we're in the Final Four.
How about that?
There's more to college than sports. But it seems that that's all we talk about.
Not this week,
Okay, members, Chair lays out Senate Bill 16 by Senator Hughes.
I'm going to Vegas.
Welcome. Good morning.
If they make the Final Four, I'm Kansas City.
You have a substitute, Senator Hughes.
We'll have to do that.
Don't believe we did.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. I thank you and the members of the committee and your excellent staff for working with us to present this bill that we're excited about. During the last regular session, a lot of discussion about the concept of critical race theory. Our discussions last session were focused on K through 12 and the ideas that we expose those students to, being obviously younger, being children, and what the best way to present those ideas are, telling the whole truth about our history while teaching our students that the way we overcome those things is by coming together as Americans, not dividing ourselves. And so we'll all well remember that debate. Senator Creighton, your bill, of course, that you worked and researched and got through committee and through the process. And so that was at K through 12. Since that time, the national debate and national awareness of the concept of critical race theory has only grown. And it's become more of a concern even at the higher education level. Now, as we discussed 2 years ago, higher education is a different animal, a different process. In higher education, we are exposed to different ideas to grow us and challenge us and help us form our own views and opinions and beliefs. And so there's certainly no attempt to stifle that. As we do that, we want to make sure that that rights are respected, discrimination is not taking place. And so the bill we lay before you, Senate Bill 16, would address that. And so a couple of things this bill does. It will establish in statute an express purpose statement for higher education, that our institutions should be committed to creating environments where students are equipped for participation in the workforce and society while also respecting intellectual diversity, but not indoctrinating students. That's the idea. It would also prevent any faculty member from compelling or attempting to compel students to adopt a belief that any race, sex, ethnicity, or social, political, or religious belief is inherently superior to any other race, sex, ethnicity, or belief. Of course, different ideas are presented, different reading assignments are critiqued and put before the students, but our institution should not be indoctrinating, compelling, or attempting to compel students to take a particular position. That's what the bill's about. And Mr. Chairman, I misspoke. We do have a committee substitute that makes it a legislative council draft.
Thank you, Senator Hughes. Senator Middleton sends up the committee substitute for Senate Bill 16. Senator Hughes, you're already recognized to explain the difference between the original file measure and the substitute, which I've already been informed. I think you just mentioned it's just the only difference is that it's a ledge council draft. Correct?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. It should be every jot and tittle of the bill that was filed, but as this committee is well aware with backed up schedules at legislative council, it was necessary to file a non-legislative council draft. So the sub makes no substantive changes.
Senator Middleton moves adoption of the committee substitute for Senate Bill 16. Is there any objection? No objection. Floor is open now for public testimony and committee substitute for Senate Bill 16.
What about questions of the witness? Any questions of the author?
Yes, members, you have questions of the author, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
We'll hold back on, we'll hold on public testimony for now, as the author is obviously available for questions.
Senator Hughes,
Senator.
obviously this issue is has been made one of great concern. I'll put it that way. I want to go through your bill to make certain that we have some legislative intent, because I find some of the language as vague, and I'm going to be very interested in your interpretation as the author of the bill, and I'm pretty certain that as this bill probably gets litigated, will the litigators also be very concerned about what the language means. You say that a public university of higher education must be committed to creating an environment of intellectual inquiry and academic freedom, so that all students are equipped for participation in the workforce and the betterment of society.
Yes, sir.
What is your intent by having that language in there?
Senator, the intent by having that language is to make clear that the presentation of different ideas, different viewpoints, different theories, different doctrines, that is the essence of higher education. So we want to make clear that no one would interpret this bill as being stifling speech or debate or academic freedom. That's the idea of that first part of the bill.
In terms of stifling of academic freedom, let's stay there for a minute. What do you mean when you say stifling of academic freedom?
Well, Senator, in the K through 12 context, understandably, there are certain things that even before critical race theory, that we as the people of Texas have said we're not going to teach these things in our public schools. These are children, they're younger students. Certain things we don't expose them to. We've debated those things for years and agreed on many of them. This, of course, is higher education. This is university. This is college, where we're expected to be exposed to different ideas. So this has a different flavor than the critical race theory bill for K through 12, which specified certain things that will not be taught. You don't see that language here because, again, I know you read a lot of good stuff in college and helped me in law school, helped prepare you for what you are. Some you agree with, some you didn't. as a political science student, one of my required readings was the Communist Manifesto. I didn't agree with, I don't think, any of it, but it was important that I read it and understand it and know where they were coming from. It has helped me to appreciate our capitalist system. So that's the idea. That's what we mean by academic freedom.
All right, so let's stop here for a second. So a teacher, a professor, is not prohibited from bringing different content to their class to make certain students are exposed to it.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so I want to make certain that the professors here know that. And that's
Yes,
your
sir.
intent as the author of this bill.
Yes, sir. That's essential for higher education. Yes, sir. That's my
All
intent.
right, and then we'll go a little further. I'm on line 15 of your bill. Intellectual diversity, so that all students are respected and educated regardless of their race, sex, ethnicity, social, political, or religious background or belief. Expound on what you mean there.
Senator, thank you. That's important. As students are exposed to different texts, historical texts, some new texts, theories from professors old and new, that's part of the education process. But what we do not want, what I think we can all agree, we do not want students to be disrespected because of their race or because of their sex, their ethnicity, their social, political background. So if I could just, I want to answer. So no one is suggesting that that various and diverse materials will not be presented to students. They will be. They should be. However, what we want to draw that line and say we do not want the university saying, student, you must believe X, you must believe this, you must adopt this belief if you want to graduate, if you want to succeed here. That's the idea. That's the line that we are trying to draw.
Okay, and let's stay right there.
Yes, sir.
And I agree with you there.
No, I know. Honestly, I know we do.
So from the reality is, in terms of professors that are here, what we're saying is, you, Royce West, as a professor, can't sit up and say, Brian Hughes, you've got to believe X, Y, and Z. That's the line that we're talking about.
Senator, that's the line we are trying to define. That's exactly right. That's
Okay.
exactly right.
All right.
Thank you for putting it in those terms. I believe that's right.
You believe it's right or
I
it
believe.
is right?
I think you said it very well.
You heard what he said? He said very well. All right.
Or should I say, it's my understanding that you said that very well.
Okay, let's go to the prohibition section
But
on
thank you.
compelling certain beliefs.
Yes, sir.
All right. Compelling seems to be a vague term. And so I want to make certain we have the definition of compelling. As the author of the bill, what is the definition of compelling?
So to compel, to use force, to use authority, to use power to accomplish an end. So it's one thing for a professor to say, I want you to read the Communist Manifesto. I want you to read Adam Smith. I want you to read Milton Friedman. That's one thing, to be exposed to those ideas. But to say, you must agree with my political position on X to get an A in this class or to pass this class, that's the line we don't want to cross.
Okay, again, going back to the line, I can say I need you to read the book,
Yes, sir.
but I can't cross the line and say I want you to believe that.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
so I
sir.
can present the information to you
Yes, sir.
and require that you receive the information.
Yes, sir.
I can test you on the information, but I can't say that you have to believe
Yes, sir.
a certain way.
Senator, I believe that's exactly right. That is exactly right. I had a number of great teachers in K through 12 and great professors in college. I remember one political science professor, and I think his politics are probably different from mine, but you wouldn't know it from his lectures. When he presented differing views, he presented them with zeal and with real enthusiasm and in a very winning way, presenting very different ideas for us all to listen to and help form our own views, our own opinions. And I believe that's what our professors in Texas try to do. I believe that.
So students can form their own beliefs, though.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
as an example, we go on with this. A faculty member of an institution of education may not compel or attempt to compel a student enrolled at the institution to adopt a belief that any race, sex, or ethnicity, or social, political, or religious belief is inherently superior to any other race. All right, so you can't have students adopt that belief.
Can I make them or try to make them, compel them? Yes, sir.
Based on the definition of compel that you have, that you've
Yes, sir.
articulated.
Yes, sir.
But you can expose them to different, hold your point, you can expose them to various historical episodes, I'll put it like that,
Yes, sir.
in the history of our country.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so slavery.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any of those types of issues, any types of issues concerning LGBTQ,
Yes, sir.
all the Holocaust.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And so we're not telling professors that they can't provide that type of information. But what we're saying, if this bill, if it passes, which I don't plan on voting for, by the way, but that's a different story.
Well, we haven't finished yet. You may get there.
Well, I'm trying to get you to pull it down. We haven't finished yet, though. The fact is, so we're not saying that professors can't present this information, okay? And students can, frankly, and can a professor provide their position on these issues to students?
Yes, sir. This would say, nothing here that says the professor can't say what they believe, but it says they cannot compel or attempt to compel the students to adopt that belief. But Senator, honestly, these questions really are helpful because that's part of the reason this intellectual higher education purpose in section 50.001 is here, to make clear this is not to squelch teaching or academic freedom, but it is to make sure that the university and that acting through that faculty or the faculty on their own, to make sure they're not using their power to compel adoption of a belief.
And when we say power, we're talking about the power of the pen. That's great. The papers and things of that nature, giving them a great.
That's the strongest one. And some students, as you know, some students may testify about experiences they've had where through things that were said to them, ways that they were treated or berated in class. But the idea is the professor using their position of power, the faculty member using their position of power to compel or attempt to compel a student to adopt a belief.
So is there anything with if a student articulates a particular position on an issue dealing with race, sex, ethnicity, et cetera, and the professor disagrees with them and says so in the classroom, is that berating them or having a
Senator, I think
intellectual
a
discussion?
lot of these are going to be fact issues. It's going to be in the context. Do they tell the student that they're stupid? Do they tell them do they curse them? Do they kick them out of class? You know, a discussion.
Those are the types of things you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Okay, which they shouldn't do anyway.
That's right. That's right.
And I concur with you on that.
Yes, sir. No, thank you.
All right. So if a professor wanted to talk about white privilege, they could talk about white privilege.
Yes, sir.
White supremacy.
Yes, sir.
Okay, slavery.
Yes, sir.
Lynchings.
Yes,
things
sir.
of that nature, and give their
Yes, sir.
particular position on that.
Hard, difficult things. Of course, those things need to be talked about. Yes, sir.
Okay, and so professors and students here shouldn't fear that if this legislation passed, that these types of subject matters will be quote unquote taboo, and we're not trying to chill what professors teach, and we want to make certain that their professors can feel free to be able to delve into these most critical issues in our history of our country.
Senator, I agree with that statement 100%.
Okay. Can a teacher discuss the historical oppression of members of the LGBTQ plus community,
Yes, sir.
including transgenders,
Yes, sir.
if they feel so inclined?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have no other questions at this time.
Thank you, members. Senator Middleton. All good?
Yeah, thank you, Senator Hughes, for bringing this. So I think we focused a lot on the compel part of it, right? So obviously what we all want is freedom of thought, academic freedom. You know, that's what our universities are supposed to be about.
Sure.
And no student should feel like that their grade's going to suffer or they're going to have some sort of negative outcome because they convey their sincerely held belief or because their sincerely held belief does not match with that of their professor, right? And that's really the intent of your bill here, to make sure that we're encouraging that free speech in our First Amendment rights and all the great things about America. And it's just fundamentally wrong that a student should ever feel that their grade will suffer if they don't have to adopt their professor's beliefs that they don't agree with. In other words, they're having to convey things that they don't believe in so their grade won't suffer. And that's one of the negative outcomes and consequences of being compelled under this bill. So,
Senator, that's right. That's exactly right.
thank you for bringing this. It's an important step towards academic freedom that we need.
Yep, Mr. Chairman.
Senator West.
And feeling is subjective, is that correct? We talk about a student shouldn't feel. That's subjective. And so again, that's when you start talking about the fact, you got to look at each facts and circumstances, right?
So that's right, because compel or attempt to compel is an objective standard. It's going to depend on the facts in many of those cases. I believe you're right. That's right.
Okay, so you said, and I understand what you said, if you have a professor calling a student stupid, dumb, cursing at him in class, then that's evidence of compelling.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But if that doesn't occur, then that's also evidence of a professor not attempting to compel someone.
My position, what the bill intends, a professor disagreeing with a student is one thing. Again, that's part of the process too. That like the Socratic method we used in law school. It wasn't fun, but it helped us learn, helped us get to the right place.
Sure.
But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Senator.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But compelling or attempting to compel, that's the line. That's the line that we're trying to define here.
Okay, so you recognize there's going to be a lot of litigation on this, aren't you?
Well, I hope not. We hope that professors will do like most of them do in Texas, and present different ideas and present them passionately, and let students learn and listen and form their ideas. And that's the idea.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I should say, obviously the chair will control the flow of witnesses. Everyone's testified, but I'm so excited that the committee and I will get to hear today from Professor Carol Swain, a wonderful American success story, extremely distinguished professor who can answer these questions much better than I can. I hope she won't have to correct too much of what I've said, but it's going to be a real joy to get to hear from her. I know we're all going to enjoy it.
You're not going to feel compelled, are you?
That's a great question, Senator. I wish I'd thought of that.
Senator Hughes, we're going to open up public testimony now. Thank you. I'd like to get public testimony open before Senator West is compelled to ask another question on this. Although we do appreciate all of his feedback and questions and vetting of all of these bills. So at this time, we'll open up public testimony on Senate Bill 16, and the chair will call Dr. Carol Swain to testify. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you here, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. If you could, just state your name and who you represent and your position on the bill.
Okay, first of all, I want to say good morning to the distinguished Senate committee as well as the people who came here today because they care about this issue. My name is Carol Swain, and I'm currently a distinguished fellow for constitutional studies at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. And for 28 years, I was a university professor. I was tenured at Princeton University and promoted to full professor at Vanderbilt. I'm also the founder of a company that I founded in 2020 called Real Unity Training Solutions that offers an alternative to the divisive politics of diversity, equity, inclusion, and CRT as it is being played out in today's society. I am here to support Senator Hughes' bill. I strongly urge you to pass the bill, and I think it will protect the rights, civil rights, and civil liberties of all Texans. As far as my personal background, which is relevant, I'm one of 12 children born and raised in rural poverty in southwestern Virginia. We all dropped out of school after completing the 8th grade. I married at 16. By the time I was 17, by the time I was 21, I had 3 small children. People entered my life and encouraged me. I got a high school equivalency, went to a community college and got the first of 5 college and university degrees. I graduated from Roanoke College in Salem, Virginia with a bachelor's degree, magna cum laude, while working full-time at the community college library, a job that I earned or was given as a work-study student. I started as a work-study student, and because I was willing and able to work when they needed me, a full-time job was created nights and weekends. I was born in 1954. That was the year of the Brown versus Board of Education desegregation case. And social scientists would describe a person like me as underprivileged, a victim, doomed to fail and going nowhere. And as you can see, they would be wrong. My education includes an associate's degree in criminal justice, a bachelor's. I'm sorry. My education includes an associate's degree in business, a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, a master's degree and a PhD in political science, and a master's of studies in law. And that master's in study in law was something that I earned after being a tenured professor at Vanderbilt. And I can tell you that during my 28 years in academia, I had a front row seat to the evolution of the academy. I watched firsthand as critical theories such as critical race theory, critical queer theory, radical feminism, cultural relativism, and postmodernism escaped from the law and philosophy departments and gradually changed our colleges and universities before spreading into and infecting our K through 12 educational system. And this topic may seem new to many Americans, but this transformation has been going on for decades, long before COVID-19 and the pandemic of 2020. When I started college in the 1970s, campuses staffed both liberal and conservative professors. University conferences and panels always had at least one dissenting voice at the table. Students were encouraged to explore ideas and live the life of the mind. Sadly, these days are over, and I saw this transition really begin to just take off like wildfire in the 1990s when we had demands for safe spaces, trigger warnings. The personal pronouns came later, separate graduations, separate course sections. And as we know now, students are encouraged to seek out microaggressions, which are perceived insults and threats. The current situation, colleges and universities are no longer marketplaces of ideas where critical thinking skills are developed. They have become indoctrination centers that are openly hostile to any ideas associated with Western civilization, in particular Christianity and traditional American thought. The current situation on college and university campuses across America is an unhealthy one. It is not conducive to learning or developing critical thinking skills. The new educational approach of today demands that students not follow the settled science, but rather go against it. For example, we are told that XY chromosomes do not determine one's sex. It's how one feels. Biological men can give birth to babies even though they do not menstruate or have ovaries. That a person can identify as an animal doesn't matter that the DNA makeup is not the same. And we're told that there are many races when in fact human beings constitute one race, the human race. Science has declared that we all descend from a common ancestor. And if the above is not enough, there is blame placed on white Americans for slavery when we know that slavery has been part of the human experience since time immemorial. All the above are neatly packaged and presented as CRT DEI, and it is filled with lies. Students today are asked questions regarding their beliefs in order to out them. Once outed, they can experience lower grades from professors or harassment from fellow students. CRT not only violates the basic tenets of American identity, a common language, faith, and commitment to civic institutions and values, it violates the long-standing belief that children do not belong to the state and that parents have the God-given right to protect and direct the educational and well-being of their children. Now, the call for action, CRT and DEI as being currently practiced in America violate traditional American values associated with classical liberalism. Most importantly, for our purposes, CRT violates the 1964 Civil Rights Act and its prohibitions against discrimination on the basis of race, sex, color, religion, disability, and national origin. Critical race theory often violates the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution when it discriminates against individuals based on their immutable characteristics. It's not based on federal law or constitutional principles. DEI has never been ordered by a federal court. It operates on principles that run counter to many state and local laws and our U.S. Constitution. The woke agenda that we see on university and college campuses does not represent who we are as a people. It's about changing American values and our way of life. In closing, DEI and CRT violate the U.S. Constitution's Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment and the First Amendment's Freedom of Speech Clause, which not only protects but also has been interpreted by the Supreme Court. It protects speech, but it's been interpreted by the Supreme Court to prohibit compelled speech. Our civil rights laws and amendments protect more than racial and ethnic minorities. Men are protected as well as women. Heterosexuals are protected as well as homosexuals. Christians are protected as well as Muslims, Buddhists, and Wiccans. And whites are protected as well as racial and ethnic minorities. This is the law of the land. The law of the land protects every person against discrimination, and it needs to be known and enforced. SB 16 is consistent with Supreme Court prohibitions against compelled speech. I urge you to vote for and pass Senate Bill 16. And I thank you for inviting me here today, allowing me to share my story, and giving me an opportunity to share my experiences. I look forward to trying to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Members' questions, Senator Springer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Swain, I appreciate you being here and sharing your information with us. In your statement that you provided us, one line that caught my eye is it says DEI is a $1 billion a year industry that claims to pursue social justice. And a lot of times, sometimes it's always follow the money. And so, can you just elaborate quickly on that, please? Because that was not what I was expecting to see in that testimony, but I would like to understand that better.
Well, first of all, diversity, is something that is positive. And for the Christians in this room, God is a God of diversity. The whole universe is diverse. And diversity has been around, as a public and governmental goal since the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act with affirmative action. And when I started college, and even before, diversity was sought by colleges and universities, sort of going out and trying to recruit from underserved populations. I think that kind of diversity is not a problem, but what is happening today is a problem. And what we find is that the diversity, equity, and inclusion industry, it is a $1 billion industry. And the diversity is not about bringing people in so you can have integration so that they can become a part of the whole and giving them opportunities. It's very much focused on people maintaining their differences. It's all about differences. And then when I went to college and when I was recruited and the system that allowed me to achieve the American dream, it was about equal opportunity. I had an equal opportunity to succeed or to fail. It depended on my own actions. Equity is about equal outcomes. It's about bringing in people from different groups and giving them an equal outcome regardless of effort. And as a consequence, we have many people in positions of power that shouldn't be there. And inclusion now means including various affinity groups. It's not about people coming together to advance the mission of the whole. And I think it's very dangerous. And many corporations, universities, they have been forced pretty much to bring on the diversity, equity, and inclusion regime. There are many positions, and their job is to stir up conflict because it's rooted in Marxism.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Dr. Swain, why would CRT be taught overall on our college campuses? You mentioned it's widely published and well known that it's rooted in Marxist theory. What are the basic tenets of critical race theory?
Well, first of all, it's been around for a long time. It grows out of cultural Marxism. Many people are familiar with economic Marxism associated with Karl Marx. Some of his disciples, some of the names, Antonio Gramsci, Max Horkheimer, people that felt that they were trying to figure out why Karl Marx's economic theory failed. They decided it was a culture. And so what happened after the rise of Hitler, many of the disciples of Karl Marx came to the United States and they set up residence at Columbia University. They churned out students who fled, who took the ideas across the country. And it has been a philosophy, like there are many different philosophies that have been taught on college and university campuses. What's dangerous about it is that it is a theory. It's a theory that someone thought up, but it's being taught and implemented as if it was true. And it's not based on truths. In fact, it's a conflict model. It cannot bring about racial reconciliation and healing. And I think the ultimate goal is to bring down the United States if you actually study Marxism and what they say about their intention. And many of the disciples are well-meaning. They believe they can bring about a utopia. It's never happened, but they still believe they can.
Why would our publicly funded universities in Texas advance and foster a climate that would, sort of prioritize or lift up Marxist critical theory, knowing how many have starved across this world throughout history, how many have been oppressed, how many have lost their lives under those regimes? Why would that in any way, shape, or form be sort of a heightened learning experience or priority for professors on our publicly funded Texas university campuses?
Well, one of the things that I've noticed, and again, I taught at Princeton, was tenured there, and at Vanderbilt, is that the ideas that we associate with cultural Marxism, it is spread to just about every department of the university. And so they've sort of been mainstream. Many of the people that may be pushing not just compelled speech, but compelled action, I don't believe that they actually know that it's Marxism.
And why in a learning environment would the professor not at the outset explain that it's rooted in Marxism?
Because I'm not sure they all know. I'm not sure they all know because whether you're talking about K through 12, it's part of the teacher education programs. It's part of the divinity and seminary schools. It's part of medicine and science now. And so clearly the goals of the Marxists to infiltrate institutions, change them from within, those goals have been very successful. And I firmly believe that the people that think these ideas are, these are new, that they are doing something positive, they are unaware of the true history of Marxism, and they are unaware of the detrimental impact that it has on young people. And when I was a child, I'm a product of public schools that I dropped out of, but I believed in the American dream. I was taught that if I worked hard and got an education, that I could make something of myself. And I did not have anyone telling me that because of the color of my skin that I was a victim, because I was black, poor, a woman. I did not have those messages. And I believe that a young person today receiving those messages would have a very, very difficult time becoming successful. And if you believe that the world is stacked against you because of racism, because of the color of your skin, then I think that it removes an incentive to work hard. It makes you angry. And as a consequence, we see on college campuses that young people that go there, they're more likely to become politicized and to become anti-American because of what they are being, the ideas they've been exposed to.
That's a point that I was hoping to strike a balance in that sort of intersection between is the professor completely unaware of
Well,
the
some of the
Marxist
professors are activists.
the Marxist roots behind critical race theory, because if the effort is to incite anger, it seems like the awareness is not incompetence or lack of knowledge. It seems nefarious and it seems intentional.
Well, there's some professors that are activists, and on university campuses, there are very few conservatives. There are very few Republicans, and for a large part of my career, I was a Democrat, so I was part of the dominant party. And I can tell you, as a professor, I tried to present ideas from both sides. Like if I was presenting an issue, I tried to present diverse opinions. Even though I may have held my own opinion, I tried to expose my students to other ideas. I have found less of that on university campuses in recent years. I've also seen compelled actions. This bill is about compelled speech, but I've seen compelled actions where professors will send out emails to all of their students asking them to volunteer to work on a political campaign. In fact, that's been around for a while. I worked on political campaigns because my professors sent out emails. And if you don't choose to do that, you're outing yourself. And if it's a gay pride week or gay pride celebration and everyone's supposed to wear a purple ribbon or supposed to attend a certain function, if you don't show up, then you're outing yourself. And I've had students tell me that they have had situations on the first day of class in math and science classes where a teacher may ask, how many people here are pro-choice, or something to out whether or not they're pro-life. And in one particular case, the young lady told me that she had friends that she knew were pro-life, and she was the only person that raised her hand. Many conservative students just drop those classes when they see that their professors are biased, and as a consequence, they're not able to fully enjoy the campus.
Is conservative free speech or even moderate free speech still protected on our university campuses?
Well, I mean, in public universities, the First Amendment should protect the rights of all students, their rights to free speech, but also their right to be protected from compelled actions or compelled speech. And what is happening is students are finding themselves in situations where if they don't participate in what everyone else is doing, they are outing themselves.
Well, you mentioned the balance and how different issues are taught. You know, the painful history of slavery, as mentioned as part of our past, that is some of the ugliest, most reprehensible examples of our nation's history. But at the same time, critical race theory would teach that. Critical race theory leaves out the balance of another point, which is completely and irrefutably true, that nations all over the world in the 1800s were working to eradicate slavery and emancipate individuals that were held in slavery. America was one of those nations, right? And we had a bloody civil war with so many casualties over it. But as you mentioned, slavery was, had been in existence and was in the mindset and polluted the mindset of so many, because it had been an institution that existed from the dawn of time. It's often not taught that America was one of the countries that led the effort, along with so many other countries in the 1800s, to rid ourselves of it. And that balance seems to be lacking in critical race theory as an example, that only one side of that is the case. And if a student writes a paper that reflects patriotism and love of America and country, if they could feel at risk for being given an F for expressing that patriotism, then how do we strike a balance there where at the end of the day, the facts, if we just look at the facts may just be explained as that work was substandard, even if it could have been incredible prose, but still lack the same political viewpoint. You get what I'm saying there?
I do, and I want to say something about slavery. One of the problems with not just critical race theory, but revisionist history, is that they leave out the fact that the first Africans that came to America in bondage were indentured servants, and up until I believe it was 1661, they served along with some white indentured servants, were set free, and they became part of the free black population in America. And they have been very successful free blacks, and that slave holders included blacks, whites, and Native Americans. That's part of our history, that white people risked their lives facilitating the Underground Railroad, and that it was white philanthropy that set up colleges and universities as well as schools in the South. And Black Wall Street. We hear a lot about Black Wall Street and the horrendous things that happened there, but the true story of Black Wall Street that is just as important is that black people, without government loans, without affirmative action, built a community that was the envy of all the people around, that they were so prosperous. And so there are positive experiences, and the true history would say that the colleges and universities outside the South that did not discriminate against blacks, they have graduates going back, to the 1800s. And so the story that we're told is a negative one that leaves out many facts that are positive. The civil rights movement itself was positive because we saw people come together across racial, ethnic, and religious lines, and we had a very successful civil rights movement. And I would argue that all of this stuff about America being systemically racist, it was systemically racist in 1954 when I was born. I watched that system collapse when we passed 3 major civil rights bills in the 1960s. And so for Black Americans and racial and ethnic minorities, I don't think there could be a better time to be alive, but that's not the message that our young people are receiving. And as a consequence, they are unhappy, they're bitter, they're not taking advantage of opportunities. And I believe that that is something that we should all feel a great sadness about, the lies that they're being taught. And those lies are coming through critical race theory and the new diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is not the same as what diversity used to mean for all of us.
This discussion that we've had just in the last 30 minutes, do you feel like these types of discussions are fostered in a college classroom in Texas? Because whether or not you agree with some of the basic tenets of just the points, and I'll recognize Senator West to ask some questions now as well, but I just wonder if as brilliant as our students are in our Texas universities, they're very capable of discernment and making their own decisions based on a balanced approach to curriculum and teaching. But at the same time, if that approach is just one-sided without that balance, I just wonder, as we all search for discernment and wisdom and just a learning experience overall, and I'm still doing the same. I was always taught that you never cease to set out every day to surround yourself with talented, smart people that are around you and continue to try to learn the best you can. But I think that we're really taking a step back in our the learning environment that we're trying to accomplish for Texas. If we have
this is national.
programs like this that are not just available, but are prevalent. Yeah.
This is national, but I think we should all be encouraged because what I see is young people across the country, and this is not just white people, very diverse students that want to engage in ideas. And I've had an opportunity to speak, this was during COVID, but to a political science class at Berkeley. I've spoken at Boston College. I've spoken recently at Texas A&M. I have an invitation to speak at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and I will be part of a panel at the American Political Science Association in August. So I think that things are moving back towards balance, but these issues that have been raised by Senator Hughes's bill are important because schools will be sued if they discriminate against students or faculty because of their race, their religion, their national origin, their sexual orientation, all of these things. The Civil Rights Act is very clear about those protections. And then with the Equal Protection Clause, it protects all persons. And so we should be supporting the protection of civil rights and civil liberties for everyone in Texas. And I'm very proud of Texans for sort of leading the way and standing strong on these issues. But you do have problems at your colleges and universities, and I think some of it is coming from professors who really don't know what they're doing, or they don't care, or they're so sure that they are right and everyone else is wrong, they're trampling the rights of other people.
And that's a great point, and I'll finish with this, but yes, I mean, we have examples on our Texas University campuses where students, even entering into an internship program, there are universities in Texas that provide $1,000 stipend to the Democrat interns that are sent to the Capitol from those universities, but the Republican interns receive zero.
Right.
There are examples of public universities where students are afraid to simply put in an essay that it's proper and appropriate to have a balanced budget mindset when government is working on a comparison of revenue as it decides its expenditures, and punished by their grades because of writing such a statement. So political theory and just expressing even moderate free speech in some of the the academic assignments, it's interesting what we learn as a committee and what's shared with us on the lack of balance that exists in our universities and our learning environments, and that's what our students deserve. They're, like I said, they're brilliant. They're smart enough to make their own decisions, but that teaching environment, that's what empowers them to ultimately make conclusions that are based on logical reasoning and what a reasonable person would conclude. Central West, do you have questions? Yeah.
Oh, yes, and I won't spend a bunch of time, but I look forward to having a conversation
Thank
with
you.
you. What is your definition of DEI?
Well, I mean, diversity used to mean that you had people or things from different varieties. That's what it used to mean. I would say today diversity is about groups, and it's about bringing in representatives of certain groups, and they're maintaining their distinct group identities as opposed to looking at individuals. So it's not my definition. It's the
Well,
definition
in terms
that
of
I see.
in terms of the, let's examine that for a second. The groups come in and maintain their identity. They don't assimilate with the entire workplace.
I think that there's a push now for affinity groups where in workplaces as well as campuses where people come in and they affiliate with their group and they make group demands, they have group identities, And I can tell you from my experiences as a professor, I've spoken with many minority students that were raised in integrated communities. They had white friends. And what they lamented was that once they got to campus, they had to choose a group. They either had to get into a group or they were considered, someone that had rejected their heritage. And so diversity, again, I think diversity is positive.
So then
It used to be positive, but I think that the DEI regime.
Hold on for 1 second. Listen. We're going to have a conversation, okay?
Okay.
All right. Affinity groups. Are fraternities and sororities affinity groups?
Yeah, I would say so.
So if I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, I've joined an affinity group on campus. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It depends. If you went to campus, college, a lot of, it's fine. If you got in, you wanted to do that, that was your lifelong dream. I don't
So
have a problem with it.
joining an affinity group, frankly, doesn't keep me
I don't
from
think
being.
an affinity
let me
group is the same
finish.
as a racial group
let
or
me finish. May I finish? May I finish? Joining an affinity group within itself doesn't keep me from being a part of the community, correct? Is that correct?
It depends.
Okay,
What type of affinity group it is.
I like a fraternity.
A fraternity is not the same as the groups we're talking about.
What type of groups are you talking about?
I thought we were talking about.
I'm talking about affinity groups.
All right, affinity groups. What about affinity groups?
Well, what's your
You
definition?
were talking about sororities.
Let me-
I would say affinity group is a group where people share similar interests.
Okay.
And goals.
Fraternity. A fraternity is a group that shares similar interests,
Yeah.
right? So that's your definition. Then a fraternity is an affinity group. Would you
But
not
that's
agree?
fine with yes.
All right. And so
I
my
don't have a
point is
problem
this,
with
though,
that.
as relates to affinity groups, just because you're a member of an affinity group doesn't necessarily correlate with you not being a member and interested in the entire community, correct?
It shouldn't, because the whole purpose of integration was to bring people together so they can learn from one another.
Exactly. All right. I can be a member of the Mexican American Bar Association at a law school. That's an affinity group. That doesn't mean that I don't want to make certain that the whole community doesn't profit from me being on that campus, correct?
Well, what we find on the campus,
I'm asking, am I correct?
you are correct about how it could
Okay,
operate.
so you're, based on what I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong on this,
I will.
I understand, that's why we're going to do this like this, okay? As it relates to me being a member of an affinity group, doesn't necessarily correlate with me not wanting to be a part of the total community. Cool.
Right,
All right.
right.
And so, but you said that your experience has been students that join affinity groups don't have any real allegiance to the entire community?
That's not what I meant to convey, if that's what you heard.
That's what I heard.
have
So what do
seen-
you- so what do
That's
you
not
mean?
what I want to convey. What I have found with the group identities on campus that we have now is that a lot of times demands are being made. The groups are segregating themselves. We have a resegregation. There are some colleges and campuses now where you can take course sections with members of your racial and ethnic group.
Okay, so, but
that's-
so you're making conclusory statements.
No,
I
but
need
I
more
thought we were talking about.
Ma'am,
we-
out of due
we're
respect,
I mean, I don't want to
out of all due
conflate-
respect, let me ask the questions. And I'm going to give you, as a member of this committee, the respect to answer the question, but I need you to answer the question now. Okay, you don't have to answer the way I want you to answer. You can answer the way you want to. But I'm trying to delve down into your testimony
All right.
because your testimony is frankly inconsistent with what I've experienced. Okay, and just like you've had experiences, I've had experiences. All right, and frankly, I never felt like I was a victim growing up. All right, now there may be some people that feel so that they're victims, and I understand that. People feel different ways. So would you sit up and say diversity groups, affinity, and you correlate those with affinity groups that isolate themselves on campus? You know, I understand in part what you're saying because you can go to a cafeteria and you see a bunch of black kids over here, a bunch of white kids over here, a bunch of kids that do cowboy stuff on this side, do different things. I understand that. You see that just naturally going to church on Sunday morning. the most segregated hour in our 24-hour cycle. And so I understand that. And so what I'm trying to understand is just because those things occur and people kind of segregate themselves that way, that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have a affinity towards the entire group. That's what I'm asking.
Well, for the sake of moving on, I don't have a problem with affinity groups. And so we could say honor societies that people choose to join. Those could be affinity groups. And so there are many types of affinity groups. So I don't see anything wrong with affinity groups
Right.
like that.
Okay. Now, what about equity? What's your definition of equity? And is that a bad thing or a good thing?
Equity now means equal outcomes. It's not the same as equal opportunity. I would say that when you and I don't know when you went to college.
Before you.
Well, no, I'm older than people think. But I did go to college as an adult, so 70s and 80s. At that time, there was equal opportunity and non-discrimination. Like non-discrimination was the law of the land. It opened up doors for me. It opened up doors for you. I would say that equity is about equal outcomes and that people are making demands on the basis of their group membership.
So you're saying today it's about equal.
I'm saying equity is not the same as equal opportunity. That equal opportunity opened up doors for me and you and for a lot of people. Women, white women, lots of people benefited from non-discrimination and equal opportunity. And that is the law of the land, and that's the law we should respect, I believe.
And so equity now is defined how?
Equal outcomes, as
Equal
opposed to, it's not the same as equal opportunity. And I would say that with equal opportunity, when you went to college and I went to college, we had an equal opportunity to fail, and we saw a lot of people that we knew and we cared about flunk out.
Yeah.
They had an opportunity to succeed. They had an opportunity to fail.
Inclusion.
Pardon?
Inclusion.
Inclusion should mean, bringing in people that are diverse and making them be part of the whole, helping them to become part of the whole. That's how I would define inclusion.
How's it defined now?
Well, what I have witnessed is that with inclusion now, you have people that come in and they want to maintain their differences in the sense that whether it's the workplace or whether it's the college campus, they want support for their group, and that's where affinity groups come in, because certainly in the work world, and I'm talking now as the owner of this Unity training, that I have many. I've had CEOs and owners of businesses say that they are afraid to speak because they have these groups and everyone is celebrating a separate day, and so they start sending out emails or trying to celebrate days, but there's an endless group of people that want that special day celebrated, and they see that as inclusion.
Is that a problem?
Where does it end?
That's not the question I asked.
It depends. If you have a mission of an organization and you're trying to get your work done, or you're trying to make a profit on a business, it could be a problem.
Has your experience indicated it is a problem?
It
And
could,
if so-
for some businesses.
I'm not saying could. I'm saying have your experiences indicated by different groups within an organization wanting to celebrate their heritage or whatever the case may be.
There's not a problem.
May I
Yeah.
finish? Has that impacted productivity in the workplace?
Yes.
You have specific examples of that.
Oh, there are plenty of examples. I don't have them in front of me right now, but companies that are moving away from it, and it's like, it can be very disruptive.
So inclusion can be disruptive.
If you go down the path of allowing every group to celebrate that special day, there's an endless number of groups that will step forward to have a special day, and so it does. And then there are pressures on people to participate. And that gets back to compelled action within colleges and universities. And I've actually witnessed some of this, that if you don't show up for certain functions, if you don't put your personal pronouns on your door, you're making a statement. If you don't, and there's been a lot of pressures. I left academia in 2017 but to have your personal pronouns listed outside your door. And so if you did not do that, then you were making a statement, or people could interpret that as a statement.
We're what we are because we're what other people perceive us to be.
Pardon?
We're what we are because we're what other people perceive us to be.
The thing about it is that whether you're a faculty person that's tenured or a student, there are rewards and punishments that can be distributed for or against individuals based on their
Perception.
perceived behavior. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you know, I've got to take exception with you too, just on the side. I learned about indentured servitude.
Pardon?
I learned about indentured servitude when African Americans
Right.
first came here.
Did you learn about the
Let me
three-fifths
finish.
clause?
Let me finish. I learned about that. And I learned also that once they fulfilled their obligation, they were released. But there was also, how should I say it, the historical facts about Africans at that point were also used and became enslaved in 1699 and all that stuff. I learned about that, even though there were some that were still doing that time in this country, indentured servants. I understand that. Now, and I also learned about that in the classroom when we were talking about the Middle Passage and things of that nature. So it was a balanced approach. And I'm not, don't get me wrong, I can't sit and tell you that I've been in every classroom in this college, in the state, on college campuses. I'm just kind of puzzled where you sit up and say that balanced information isn't being provided for students for their consideration. And it sounds as though you're saying that that's kind of prevalent on all our college campuses as opposed to being an isolated incident. So the question is, are the examples that you've given us, are they isolated incidents or they're just prevalent in all college campuses?
Well, you know something, I travel all around the country.
I'm talking about in Texas.
Well, I've been here quite a bit now.
So the question
I
then, the
think-
question is in Texas,
Right.
is it prevalent or isolated?
I think you need to, that should be asked other
Now,
students.
the way I'm
I would
answering the
say-
question, ma'am, out of
I would-
all due,
yeah, I
out
think
of
I
all
would
due
say-
respect,
I would say
all due
that.
respect.
Senator West, we have a volunteer
I would say
here.
Well, I understand that, but I want her to
She's
respond.
very willing to answer, but if
I
if
believe-
she's not answering exactly like you want, she's not under subpoena, right?
Well,
We're just having a pleasant conversation, and it's the best
It is pleasant. It
best
is
classroom
pleasant. I consider it
environment and
pleasant.
learning environment for all those in attendance.
I agree.
But
I agree with you.
but
I'd
you
like
know,
to hear the question
please
answered.
handle the witness where she would certainly want to come back.
I'm not trying to handle the witness. I'm having a conversation with her.
Okay.
It's
That's
fine.
one way to put it.
Okay.
I think it's prevalent based
Texas.
on what I have heard, and
Based on hearsay?
no, there is a journalist, this Miss Sanchez, that has written quite a few articles about what's taking place. She's based in Dallas on the campuses, and she's very concerned about what's happening to conservative students. And she reached out to me, and that's how I came to know her. And then I have heard just many reports from students about what's taking place. And I know as a faculty member firsthand, you know, what it's like. I gave up my tenured position in 2017 because of the changes that I saw taking place on the university campuses and how hostile it was for conservatives and Christians. And you know, and as far as my story, I became a Christian believer in my 40s. That was after I had won national prizes. I've been cited by the U.S. Supreme Court. I'd been very successful. I can tell you that my life changed dramatically once I became a Christian, once I left the Democratic Party. It was fine up until then in academia. I won 3 national prizes.
Okay, and I appreciate it, and I kind of read your resume. Do we still have systemic racism in this country?
I would say no. I
So-
would say that we have individual racism, and it comes from all sides.
All right, so when you say individual racism, you're talking about as an individual, or do we have governmental entities that still participate in systematic racism?
I would say that that we have individual racism, and it's coming from all sides.
Okay, well,
But I would say that with the Civil Rights Acts of the
ma'am,
1960s.
all due respect, my question is this.
Yes.
You said there's no, you don't believe there's any systematic racism as there has been in the past.
Right,
But
yes,
individual
that's what
racism.
I
And
believe.
I'm trying to understand, when you say individual, are you talking about a person, or are you talking about persons and different governmental entities?
I'm just saying that individual people, human beings,
People, okay.
can be racist towards one another, and that the racism, cuts across race. And I take the position that black people can be racist, Hispanics can be racist, Asians can be racist, and white people can be racist.
Okay, that's your
Part of the
position.
human condition.
Okay, very good. Mr. Chairman, that's all the questions I have at this time.
Thank you, Senator West. I was going to ask if Senator Middleton had a question, but he had to exit. So I think at this time, Dr. Swain, thank you so much for being available and for spending the time with us. And we just appreciate your input, testimony.
Well,
And
thank you so much. And one of the things that I would urge people to look at when you want to know about historical revisionism and what's taught on college campuses is the 3/5 clause, how many people have argued that at the time the Constitution was ratified, that blacks were considered 3/5 of a human being. I've heard Harvard University professors say that, and that is not true. Thank you.
oh, thank you, Dr. Swain. Okay, at this time, we'll continue with public testimony. The chair will call Anna Schwartz, Antonio Ingram, Kat Blackwell, and Karma Chavez. Come on up, come forward, yes. Come forward and have a seat at the witness table. Ms. Schwartz, Mr. Ingram, Kat Blackwell, Karma Chavez. If you could, state your name and who you represent. If it's yourself, just say you're representing yourself and your position on the bill, either for, against, or on, if you'd just like to be in that, sort of neutral position and just giving some sentiment and feedback. First of all, I want to tell you how much of an honor it is to have all of our witnesses here today and how much we appreciate you. So make sure you feel very comfortable with your, time to testify, and you're certainly able to convey exactly what's on your pages or just speak from the heart. But we're just happy you're here. We're benefiting from you being here. So go ahead. We'll start with you.
Thank you, Chair Creedon.
Yeah.
My name is Antonio Ingram. I am Assistant Counsel with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and I'm here to oppose Senate Bill 16 for 4 reasons. First, Senate Bill 16's language is overly broad and is vague, and this prohibitive language will encompass a wide variety of classes currently being taught in higher education across Texas. So many courses involve race and gender and sexuality, from economics professors teaching redlining to English professors who are having their students read diverse pieces of literature. And from the discussions we've had already today, despite Senator Hughes' intent, clearly this is going to have a chilling effect on discussions involving race and equity in classrooms, and we have grave concerns about those issues. Second, Senate Bill 16 will hurt professors of color and queer professors. There is evidence that demonstrates that professors of color, Black, Brown, Latinx, Asian American, Indigenous, and queer professors will disproportionately be teaching the courses that are going to be impacted by SB 16. And so this is a direct attack on diverse faculty who in many ways reflect the changing demographics of the state of Texas. My third point is that even though the language may be benign on its face, as we see throughout the country, these sort of divisive concepts that are listed in bills such as these are being construed against professors and against students' ability to learn accurate and inclusive histories. As you see from the K-12 space, they've banned Ruby Bridges' autobiography as critical race theory, and we do not want to see this happen in higher ed, despite the language not being explicitly attacking certain discussions. That's how it gets construed and enforced. Finally, one of our gravest concerns is that there are many publicly funded HBCUs and Hispanic-serving institutions. It will be a grave disservice to tell these students and professors they cannot learn about their institution's founding and history. Please vote no on Senate Bill 16.
Hi, my name is Anna Schwartz. I'm a private citizen. I'm a teacher. I am also, as you are, a devotee of the Socratic method. And as a devotee of the Socratic method, I want to thank Chair Creighton for convening us and for giving us the opportunity to discuss the education of Texan citizens, past, present, and future. I'm here to oppose Senate Bill 16. I have attended state schools for most of my life, both as a teacher and as a former student. I appreciate the commitment of the state of Texas to making its young people smart, sharp, and critical thinkers. College was for me and continues to be for many young people a place where they can engage with complicated ideas and strengthen their minds through conversations with their peers and, importantly, the guidance of their excellent instructors. I oppose Senate Bill 16 because it is vague and imprecise. Its vagueness and imprecision limits freedom of thought. The bill implies that educators in institutions of higher education have the intent to compel students to dogmatic thinking when they discuss complicated topics like sex, race, ethnicity, and various sorts of belief. The bill has no provisions for identifying what does and does not count as compulsion. It does not identify what counts as belief, and it does not identify what counts as adoption. Senate Bill 16 will have a chilling effect on classroom discussion, especially discussion of some of the most pressing concerns of modern American life. Without the liberty to discuss complexity, educators in the institution cannot fulfill the most dynamic function of higher education, which is exposure to new ideas that deserve careful study. This bill will produce a future student body and citizenship whose lives are poorer because they were educated in a climate of fear. I know that Texas is a state of courageous citizens. Our representatives are courageous too. We do not need to be scared of ideas like the legislators of the city of Athens were when they censored teachers like Socrates. We should trust that our educators have our shared future in mind when they strive to communicate the best ideas of the present and past into the future. Thank you.
Good testimony. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, I would like to thank the chair before I begin. My name is Kat Blackwell. I'm speaking against this bill. I drove here 4 hours today. I know other people here have traveled further, so I want to ask for your consideration on this. So, Senator Springer, who's not here right now, I graduated just like him from the University of North Texas pretty soon, and I'll be attending graduate school soon. It will interest Senator King to know that I've spent a good portion of my life in Weatherford. My grandparents lived there all their lives, very familiar with the area. My mother went to Weatherford High School. This is all to say that I'm a Texan through and through, right? Lived here all of my life. And but there's something that our community has been reckoning with recently in regards to the Texas legislature. There's been a lot of issues. I'm here today in two roles, as an academic concerned with academic freedom, with which this bill seeks to eliminate, and I also come here as a trans woman. My field is the study of social movements, rhetoric, and trans studies, and I have generous offers from several high-ranking graduate schools in Texas. But realistically, I know I cannot accept them should this bill pass. This bill and many others under consideration will require me to leave Texas to continue my studies, continue my transgender healthcare, and continue my life. I'm lucky and smart enough to have offers from out-of-state and international universities, but what would happen if I was not able to take those offers? How could I have a discussion with a transgender or a Jewish student and discuss their lives and experiences if I'm unable to condemn the anti-Semitism or transphobia they face outside of class? How could I work for a university where I am legally prohibited from telling my students that white supremacy or slavery are a bad thing? Under the language of this bill, I am not confident that I could do that, as I would be, by definition, attempting to, quote, compel a student to adopt a belief that a social or political belief is superior to others. How could you engage any discussion on these topics if you're legally prohibited from even taking into account that there are moral evils or bad things? I don't know how it could be done. I don't think anyone here knows how it could be done. This bill is one of the many working to undermine the constitutional rights to freedom and speech and expression that I hold dear, and I plead for the sake of our universities you reject this bill. Thank you for your time.
Go ahead.
So first of all, I also want to thank the distinguished members of the committee for giving us the chance to speak. My name is Karma Chavez, and I'm a professor of Mexican American and Latino Studies. I'm a member of the American Association of University Professors, and I'm also a proud resident of the state of Texas. But today I'm here speaking as a private citizen. I want to express my concerns about SB 16. I've been an educator in public higher ed since 2000, and I've taught here in Texas since 2016. I found students at my institution currently to be among the brightest that I've ever taught. They're thoughtful, they're respectful, they're engaged. I also want to tell you that they're not easily compelled to any particular point of view. I can hardly compel them to read the syllabus. Which is about the only thing I can tell them to try to do. My job as a teacher has nothing to do with compelling them or attempting to compel them to do anything. As a teacher, I understand my job to be to present to my students the most cutting-edge research in my interdisciplinary field of study, as well as relevant and important examples of cultural expression like literature, art, speeches, and the like. And then I invite them to think critically about the materials and apply what they've learned to classroom assignments as well as to other contexts beyond the classroom. Given how I understand my job in the university classroom, I have to admit that I'm confused as to the purpose of SB 16. Neither I nor any teacher I know compels or attempts to compel students to a particular belief. Dictating what students believe seems to me to be akin to fascism, and in my extensive experience in public universities, this is in direct contradiction to what university professors do. This is not to say that students aren't challenged. Of course they are. Critical thinking and being introduced to new ideas is a dizzying experience, as I know all of you have had. And what it means is that sometimes we change our assumptions and sometimes we don't, and both should be acceptable. I was able to do this myself because I learned the skills of critical thinking in the classroom. And as far as I can tell, that's what my colleagues do too. My worry here is that SB 16 is a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. And so I urge the subcommittee to oppose.
Thank you for your testimony. Senator West.
I would ask you collectively, as relates to some of the vague terms, Mr. Ingram, that you've pointed out, to help us. This bill's going to pass, okay? Bottom line, it's going to pass. So the question is how do you make it less of a bad bill, okay? And so definitions like compel, if you have some ideas on how to make it an objective definition, I'd like to know what that is. Inherently superior, a definition of how to make that a more objective, I'd like to get that idea. And you can get that information to my chief of staff back here, who's been with me 30 years as of today.
All right, congrats again.
She started working with me when she was 2 years old. Okay. So I really would appreciate your help in making this bill a better bad bill, okay? All right.
Will do.
All right, thank you.
So we appreciate all of you. I had some additional questions for you as well. We're going to have to recess pretty soon to head to the Senate floor. But I would like to visit about just your perspective, Mr. Ingram, on the difference between definitions like between similar to equality and equity related discussions, and then thank you for your testimony as far as just a day in the life of for one of our professors. I mean, we do have different situations going on college campuses. Like at a North Texas public university, we had a conservative political candidate invited to the classroom, to a full classroom, and then once the door was shut behind that candidate and he began to just offer himself to answer questions, the professor led the entire class to yell profanity-laced, F you fascist over and over and over and over again without him being able to say one word. So instead of fostering learning and free speech and just a free exchange of ideas under the First Amendment upon invitation, it was just a kind of a terrible situation that the world saw as an example for Texas University. So we've got, obviously, we're benefiting no matter what bill passes. We're benefiting from you being here and having the conversation. And I think that's an overriding theme that would be hard to dispute. And we're benefiting from your testimony. For those of you that are waiting, we have to go to the Senate floor, but we'll reconvene. So if there's any way you can stay around and we can benefit from your testimony as well, I promise you, you'll really enjoy the experience, and anytime you can be in your Texas capital, we're benefiting from it as members. So with that, thank you to the panel, and the Senate Subcommittee on Higher Education will stand in recess subject to the call of the chair. Thank you.